Archie Comics is a truly interesting comic book publisher. A case study in adapting to the market whilst retaining your core values and characters that built your empire in the first place. From the 1941 first appearance of Archie Andrews in Pep Comics number 22 to 2017 in the CW famed teen, thriller, drama, supernatural, mystery, suspense, soap opera, coming-of-age story that is Riverdale, there's a lot of history. But there's one part of it that I'm going to focus on today. Archie Andrews, Jughead Jones, Betty Cooper, Veronica Lodge, and the rest of the small-town America that is Riverdale has crossed over with many other franchises. They've evaded Predator, played alongside the B-52s, rocked out with Kiss, and battled villains with the most wholesome Batman in my eyes, the 66 Batman. However, in the time span of 1941 to 1990, none of those took place. In fact, from the first appearance of Archie Andrews in December 1941 to the year 1990, the only notable crossovers were inside of the other Archie Comics properties, including Josie and the Pussycats and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. However, Sabrina first publicly showed up in Archie's Madhouse number 22, while Josie first publicly premiered in Archie's Pals and Gals number 23. So it's hard to really think of it as a classic comic book crossover. It was in 1991, 60 years from the original Archie appearance, that a proper crossover would occur. Between 1988 and 1994, Archie Comics would publish TMNT Comics under the title Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures. So this crossover was not only something that could happen, but by 1991 had a good working relationship with Archie Comics. Something of note though is, while it is a significant crossover, it's only one of 4 stories in the special issue, meaning that this is really a TMNT special that contains a crossover story, but this is not a crossover issue. And that is what brings me to our main topic of review. It's 1994. You're a comic book reader. Probably Spider-Man. Spider-Man was always big, but in the 90s, those comics were fucking hot. Anyway, you hit up the local comic book shop, and this shit is on the shelf. Now, you ponder the difficult question. The Punisher meets Archie, or Archie meets the Punisher? While I do want the Archie Comics version of this book, it's really just a variant cover. Variant covers are not only common today, but just a straight up virus infecting the comic book market. But in 1994, they were more reserved and rare. I would say that the covers are the only difference, but that's not exactly true. Because Marvel opted for this very cool die-cut cover design, they had extra pages to fill. See, because this cover had a cutout, it would feature this internal art, taking up the first 2 pages. That means they had 2 extra pages to fill in the back. Now, to keep it simple, they slapped in a couple of things. First, this pencil art version of the Archie Publications cover, meaning this version technically includes both covers. And second, this pinup art of Archie and the Punisher in Pop Tate's Chocolate Shop, which is cool at all, but who the fuck is gonna cut off the back of their comic to pin this thing up? Anyway, between the cover and the back page, these books are the same. So, let's begin our adventure with some background from the creators. When we open the pages of this glorious crossover, we begin with an introduction. One from the Archie side of things, and one from the Marvel side. Now, before we turn to their version of events, let's say you're fucking crazy about comic books. You follow the news, and you weren't surprised when you walked into the comic book store. You were there to pick up the comic, because you didn't just see this small news blurb in Wizard magazine. You also saw this 2-page spread in Hero Illustrated. This article is one of the only pieces of media surrounding the release of this crossover. It details a conversation with a Marvel employee referred to as Mr. X. But the whole thing is written very tongue-in-cheek, making the information dubious at best. No matter, it was enough to confirm that you should be here. And now you can learn the real story, starting with Archie Comics' own Victor Gorelick. This guy worked at Archie Comics for over 60 years in his lifetime. He describes the idea for the crossover as a long-running joke. One that involves Archie arriving home to find his parents brutally murdered. He calls upon the Punisher for vengeance, and our crossover begins. However, the higher-ups at Archie weren't quite there yet in 1994, so the joke remained as an inside joke until Victor let in someone named Baton Lash on the joke. Victor then describes, quote, "In a dimly lit San Diego restaurant amidst messy spare ribs and dirty napkins, Project A was born." The Marvel side is described by Tom DeFalco, one of Marvel's longest-running editor-in-chief position holders. Tom describes the inside joke he had with Victor, and that eventually Project A showed up without notice and included 2 cover sketch ideas. This was enough to make DeFalco laugh out loud, and he sent the work to the proper Punisher overseers, who apparently loved the idea. So with that and a 1-page introduction to both Archie and the Punisher, we can now finally begin the story. In an alleyway, a man runs from someone chasing him. We soon learn his pursuer is the Punisher, and that he is trying to get out of town. A familiar-looking redhead requests a ticket to Riverdale. Meanwhile, in that oh-so-idyllic town, Archie is about to pick up his date Veronica Lodge, only to be foiled as he rings the doorbell. This little shit uses a water gun on Archie, and that sends him into a frenzy to exact revenge. In this pursuit to get even, he drenches Veronica, losing his cool and his evening. Unfortunately for him, it's only going to get worse, as now he's being followed by some unsavory characters due to his striking appearance to our yet unnamed doppelganger. It's then we find out what the Punisher has been doing to track down his escaped prey. In an interrogation, we learn that the villain has many names. Currently, he goes by Red Fever. The Punisher and Microchip get a lead to Riverdale, USA, and begin the road trip. We turn the page to learn they can't make it quick enough. Red Fever is in Riverdale, and he's in the Lodge Manor. Red is going by Melvin J, and he's looking to dig into Mr. Lodge's pockets. And as it turns out, maybe his daughter too. As Melvin has found his way into going with Veronica to the school dance, which, goddamn, Mr. Lodge, how much is this worth? Who is this guy? And yes, now the question we all have, how fucking old is Melvin J, aka Montana Bob, aka Freckles, currently known as Red Fever? Well, I have no fucking idea. Well, I have an idea. He's young. When Mr. Lodge introduces him, he says, "I'd like you to meet Melvin J, the youngest rising entrepreneur in the country." So, I don't know, like 24? He shouldn't be taking your daughter to a school dance! Fuck, man. The 90s. Any fucking way. The Punisher made it to town. While he and his companion Microchip wander around Riverdale, Archie and Jughead spend time at Pop Tate's chocolate shop. The two are approached by some mysterious men who spent their time smoking in the corner. Fuck, man. The 90s. Archie and Jughead willingly go with the men, believing it's some unknown government matter involving Archie. But let's check in with Veronica and Red Fever at the school 1950s sock hop dance, where I imagine Red is going. What do you mean I can't say that? Fine, whatever. While the dance is happening, Archie and Jughead are about to have a close call with some bullets as the Punisher fires into the car they're being transported in, resulting in a firefight and a car crash. Now, Archie is approached by the Punisher, assuming that he's going to be catching Red Fever. While Archie is incredibly confused, the Punisher realizes that this is not his man. They may look the same, but alike they are not. Just then, a sound sends the Punisher into a firing frenzy. Archie escapes, and Jughead explains he threw a rock to distract the Punisher. Now, Archie and Jughead take off on foot, while the gangsters are chased by the Punisher and microchip in vehicles. Now, Jughead and Archie arrive at the police station, and we see that they're not willing to help Archie. He's cried wolf way too many times before, and the Punisher in Riverdale, it's a bit of a hard pill to swallow. No matter, as we turn the page, we see that the Punisher pulled back just a little bit and tailed his target. Now, that's a good move. He followed them to a meeting spot where the gangsters have met up in one vehicle to hotbox that shit. Fuck, man. The 90s. The gangsters discuss what I've pretty much glossed over to this point. Red Fever is in town, and all these gangsters are here to murder the guy. Good news is, they hear the Punisher is also in town for Melvin J, and in that case, they just gotta ride on Easy Street, cause that Frank Castle, he's good at murdering. However, here's where we get the plot device. Mr. Castle has actually made a deal with quote-unquote, the feds, to bring in Red alive so he can roll over on his shady misdealings. Like, really? Anyway, turns out the gangsters don't know this to be the case, but they do think it a possibility, and so they know that they have to kill Red Fever before the Punisher gets to him. On top of that, a roadie for Josie and the Pussycats actually saw Red Fever at the school's 50s sock hop. And since he's a roadie, he's shady. And knows shady people. Imagining the reward will be large, he made a call to one of the gangsters, and they're on their way to the high school. Luckily, Frank heard their conversation, and he's going to follow and reduce casualties. Well, I mean, that is, if the Riverdale PD don't haul him off for parking in a private driveway. No. Actually, he fucking cold cocks both officers and insults them on the way out. While driving off and leaving the police literally knocked out cold on the ground, Microchip states, quote, "That was Riverdale's finest, Frank." To which the Punisher retorts, quote, "Then they're gonna need all the help they can get." Now, at the school, we see that Archie and Jughead got a ride from one of the previously mentioned finest on the police force. The only thing is, Archie and Jughead not only didn't want to go there, they also didn't want to ride. They were looking for protection. Because as high school students in Riverdale, USA, literally just seeing a gun probably is going to give them PTSD. The fact that the gun was fired is going to put them in therapy for life. What is even happening? Not sure. Okay. Okay, here we go. So at this point, Archie and Jughead are at the dance. Archie started his evening early, showing up to take Veronica on a date. That backfired. So, to drown his sorrows, he visits the local ice cream parlor and visits his friend. In the process, he gets kidnapped, shot at, and dropped off by the police to his school dance that has his criminal double currently being hunted at it. So, while initially showing bravado, Mr. Andrews quickly breaks down and is seen to be a bit jumpy. And you know what? That's fair. But in short order, Betty reveals in casual conversation that Archie's double is here on a date with Veronica. Now, Archie is goofy, but he's not a complete fool. He pieces together that if the Punisher is here hunting someone that isn't him, but looks like him, it is probably the new guy that looks like him. Editor's note, rewrite that mess. So he tells Betty, Jughead, and Reggie they gotta warn Veronica, while the Punisher sneaks into the school via an empty classroom. The Punisher inner monologues, and in a moment that I truly enjoy, like no sarcasm here, this is a joke, a commentary, and a sweet moment all rolled into 4 panels. So, as Frank walks Riverdale High's halls and thinks to himself, quote, "Can't remember last time I was in a school with no bars on the windows. Dilapidated classrooms. However, did notice Riverdale was not without its share of graffiti." As he notices Betty's locker has a carved heart and arrow on it. The initials BC and AA are on it, and he looks to see a poster in the hall that reads, "It's up to you to keep Riverdale clean." Now, this moment grounds every single character in a reality that we know. Frank is seeing the humanity in this town. He's feeling the nature of humanity is always inclined to a form of selfishness and criminality, even when it's not related to being a mob boss. We see the carving and we know that it was a teenager who put that there. And we remember the immensely impossible levels of joy that we felt in that age when having love reciprocated. The quiet of this page pulls us back to a reality that exists outside of the goofball story, because this story's actually pretty stupid. And so is life. But somehow in this moment, alone in the hallways of a fictional school following a fictional mercenary, we're reminded of our own reality and how we fit into that. So, I like that moment. Because another thing it does is it causes you to pause, to think about the idea that for the teenagers at the dance in this fictional universe, they're in real fictional trouble. And that heightens your anticipation, as it does Frank's focus. Now, at the dance, Melvin J's hands have been playing Indiana Jones, and they're trying to explore Veronica. Now, she doesn't like it, and exclaims, quote, "You may look like someone I know, but you're getting too familiar with me." Now, terrifyingly enough, Melvin responds with, quote, "Can't help it, darling." Now, the school principal is apparently on top of it. And by that, I mean he's there at the moment and sees Veronica non-consensually getting felt up. He is, however, not vigilant enough to have seen that this guy is not Archie. Now let's take a second on this next part. So, Mr. Weatherby, the principal, has been at the dance the entire time. He walks up and hears this problem about to take place. Now, he says, quote, "You're getting a little too cozy there, Andrews." And this prompts Melvin to fucking explode in the most appropriate language that he can. Quote, "Blow, gas bag!" Now, this guy is Archie's doppelganger, right? Everybody's been like, "Damn, dude, you look like Archie and shit." However, Mr. Weatherby here, see this face? This face has no fucking clue. Mr. Weatherby can't even tell after Melvin grabs Veronica and she has to scream out, quote, "It's not what or who you think it is." While he looks quite disappointed in that Mr. Andrews. Because that's what it is. He still doesn't understand that this guy is not Archie. In the next panel, Mr. Weatherby is checking on the catering and states, quote, "That kid's a menace." Anyway, we learn as an audience here that the catering staff has been apprehended and replaced by the gangsters from before, and they're looking for Red. Now, meanwhile, Frank, being on the same mission, is mistaken for the new PE teacher. Let me tell you something, Miss Grundy's fucking into it. She fucking floods that dance floor. And even though it's immediately revealed that whoever that guy was, he was not actually the new PE teacher, because the previous PE teacher introduces a disheveled man as the new phys ed teacher. But you know what? Miss Grundy responds that they should fire that guy. Anyway, meanwhile, just around the corner, Melvin is about to... Really? Ah, well, either way. The Punisher is about to find them when Red pulls a gun. That silences Veronica, and he makes his move to leave. Inside the dance, Dilton informs Archie that Veronica is with his doppelganger. Now, he knows it's a lookalike because he's not just the smartest kid in Riverdale, but he has eyeballs and ears. Anyway, all hell is about to break loose as the Archie gang breaks off to find Veronica, while Archie himself calls the cops. The Cater gangsters see Archie and still mistake him for Red because, I don't know, man, like, who cares anymore? But they pull a gun and the Punisher leaps into action, taking out the gunman. But he receives a hailstorm of bullets in return for his favors. In the scuffle, though, we see Microchip hold up Red until Archie Comics' own Moose knocks him out, thinking he's protecting Archie. Now, because he's not just the dumbest kid in Riverdale, but, you know, he has eyeballs and ears, he realizes that this guy is not Archie, even though it's one knockout punch too late. In the fray of the battle, the coach tries to cut down the Punisher at the knees, and it's difficult to tell here, but it's shown that the coach not only didn't phase the Punisher, but it resulted in him getting thrown in a twirling trajectory towards the ceiling. I like that. Anyway, one of the gangsters has gotten Archie by knife point. However, because he's not just the only gangster left in Riverdale, but he has eyeballs and ears, he realizes that this guy is not Red Fever. Now, I want you to listen to me. If you don't think this comic is 100% aware that it's insane, out of left field, and completely comedic in nature, look no further than this page. The Punisher smashes that gangster with a cake to the face. And based on the following panels, this cake knocked him out cold. Now, let's think about this. He not only threw this so hard, it fucking knocked him out. It also went cake first, cake plate second. And I'm gonna assume that frosting cake chunks blocked his airways. So, I think we have a clear murder in the first panel, but it's the last panel that highlights the comedy of this book and its understanding of that comedy. Now, the Punisher and Archie are working together. Frank knows Archie isn't Red, and Archie knows that the Punisher isn't after him. That's when Frank tells Archie, "I'm here to see no harm comes to Riverdale." This statement is literally said in the middle of chaos. Broken glass, turntables, debris everywhere, and bodies. 5 bodies visibly strung out on the floor. I like this panel a lot. Back to the actual story. Now, as you might imagine, Riverdale doesn't get much gunfire. Or even really crime, so the school dance that recently had bullets flying is hot gossip. The parents are whipped into a frenzy and head to the police station directly. I guess the phone lines are clogged up from the news of the attack at the school, but more interestingly, the police in Riverdale, they know what's going on with the Punisher. Apparently, the chief of police is currently with the mayor and the feds. The beat cops have been directed to stay out of the way, which... yeah. He fucked you guys up, remember? Anyway, Veronica's father arrives to say he wants to pay the Punisher to get his daughter back. Now, it turns out that Red called him and is demanding ransom. At Pop Tate's chocolate shop, Jughead, Betty, Microchip, Archie, and Frank are figuring out what to do when Frank gets a call from the ever-present quote-unquote feds. We don't know the contents of the call, but the Punisher seems pleased. Meanwhile, at a warehouse full of 4th of July parade balloons, Melvin is escalating to that misdeed against Veronica. Ah! No censorship there, huh? Anyway, Red has Veronica at gunpoint when the Punisher shows up. Red is feeling a little cocky. He knows that Frank's mission is to bring him in alive, but we learn the contents of the call from the feds. They have another turncoat. They have their information. They don't need Melvin J anymore. I mean, this results in some gunfire, silly antics, and Red being hit by a runaway cart. Now, did you know Red wears a toupee? Yeah, that's not his hair. He's bald. Yeah, it doesn't matter, but he's bald. Anyway, and the scuffle, a plot device gets triggered that catches Red's foot in a rope on a parade float and drags him into the air. Like, this guy's 100% dead. If the height doesn't get him, the fall will. He's hung upside down by 1 foot. There is no way he doesn't die. So, all's well that ends well. But we still need a wrap-up. The group has breakfast at Pop Tate's. Miss Grundy gives Frank a Riverdale high sweater, and the Punisher gives her an orgasm. The Riverdale goes back to the way it was, and Microchip drives away with Frank to Gotham City. Now, the final 2 panels feature another Marvel cameo, teasing a sequel, and the idea that Jughead has a mutant doppelganger. Fuck, man. The 90s. I really do love this book. I've had this Marvel copy for over 20 years now. And even though it's a fascinating crossover and an actually enjoyable story, this crossover has been relegated to a fun footnote. And that's okay. I think that's not so bad. When it comes to comic books and comic book crossovers, having one that's not just Punisher meeting Spider-Man is good. This was a company crossover. It took a lot to make it work. And when you do a crossover, I can't imagine the red tape involved. But when The Punisher Meets Archie was proposed, it did not make sense. When it was designed, it didn't make sense. And when it was released, people couldn't make sense of it. That's great. In a 1994 NPR interview, the writer of Archie Meets the Punisher describes the environment of the time that produced this comic book.
Did Archie need the Punisher, or did the Punisher need Archie? Apparently, Archie needed the Punisher. In comic books, unfortunately, the clientele is into real adventurous sock'em superheroes, that sort of stuff. Archie Comics decided that they really wanted to pull the new reader in, and they decided that they had to go big guns, no pun intended.
Like that's some context and historical information, blah, blah, blah. Boring, right? Who cares? Give me that juicy stuff I hear you saying. Well, this interview is incredibly short, and I'm only referencing it to answer the real questions, like this one that Simon asks.
Mr. Lash, it's none of my business, but a personal question.
Sure.
Are you a Betty or Veronica man? I'm a Miss Grundy man.
I need to interject here. Simon, you're a pervert, and Batten, you're a genius. Betty and Veronica are perpetually high school students. So if you're gonna ask this question, may I suggest a reframing, such as, do you see Archie as a Betty or Veronica guy? See how that isn't asking a grown man which high school girl he's into? Next, Mr. Lash, you sly dog, you managed to circumvent the inappropriate and leading question. It also explains why you put a panel containing Miss Grundy's O-face for later, but is there anything else I should say here? Oh yeah, the sourcing for information on the history of this story exists, and it seems as though it's never been neatly collected for display. So let's do a sources speed round. Now, to do this, we're going to use the most accurate page we can. We're gonna confirm these sources, starting right here. Now, this sentence and these two sources say that this crossover is canon to the Central Marvel universe. So let's confirm that. Actually confirm that. Now, source 1 is only for official handbook of the Marvel universe, and source 2 is only for Women of Marvel Celebrating 7 Decades handbook number 1. And I'm gonna save you the time here. I read the entire books. Here's the reference that source 1 is talking about. Here in volume 7 of the 2008 to 2010 released official Marvel handbook, we see in the Millie the Model entry this absolutely tiny section here. Quote, she subsequently attended a performance by ex-Howling Commando Dino Malini in Riverdale, which became the site of a clash between the vigilante Punisher, Frank Castle, and drug dealer Red Fever. So cool, there's one. Let's check out the women handbook. Okay, it's different, but a similar 2-page write-up of Millie the Model again. And would you look at that? It's the same sentence. Well, that confirms that this is a canon event. Okay, so now I can place these images on the website as sources. Next, we're going to document the source that claims that Archie Comics was trying to up their market appeal by partnering with Marvel. Now, to do this, we have to find a magazine, an online article, and the previously shown NPR interview. Now, the NPR book was easy enough. There's a free borrow available on archive.org. Next, the webpage is live, so that's easy. But this magazine, well, that's super easy. It costs $4.99. Just for the digital issue. You guys can't pay that just to read these pages. Good thing I'm covering this and I can source these pages. In comic book creator number 8 from spring 2015, there's an interview with Batten Lash that includes information from his time writing Archie Meets the Punisher. What else here? Yes! How did this fucking comic book actually come to be? Well, was it really just an inside joke, an unsolicited pitch? There isn't actually any concrete evidence on what happened, but in the Hero Illustrated magazine we looked at, it said that the idea came from a suggestion at San Diego Comic-Con. In the comic book introduction, it was an inside joke, and at the backbone of these, it was to get Archie Comics out of its slump. But it's not really clear. So what else can we look at? Well, here on Wikipedia, a claim is made that Victor Gorelick asked for a real script pitch after hearing the idea. Now, this claim comes with a source. Let's see here. God damn it. Well then, let's cover it so I can source it. In back issue number 102, released February 2018, there is a great retrospective on this unique comic book crossover. It includes never before seen materials, and this is actually one of the best pieces written about Archie Meets the Punisher if you want more backstory that has the benefit of hindsight. And you can check it out at our sources in daveandisaac.com/rexreviews. Okay. Well, that's it, right? Shit. This says the 2013 book Icons of the American Comic Book have said it was inspired by a gag on the cover of an issue of the trade publication, The Comics Journal. Well, if it's sourced, let's fucking check. Again, I will save you time. Here it is, a playful 1994 crossover with Marvel Comics, Archie Meets the Punisher, inspired by a gag cover, and an issue of the Comics Journal was quite successful. God damn it! This book better have sourced it! Oh, it didn't? Great. Let's look at every Comics Journal cover. Okay, I checked. I checked every single cover of the Nostalgia Journal, which became the New Nostalgia Journal, which became the Comics Journal. And other than seeing some rockin' nude boobies, I didn't see anything that would make me think this was the inspiration for the joke. However, that being said, I will make the point that this could have happened. I imagine that comic book professionals read the Comics Journal, and if they joked about a cover for a while, Archie Meeting the Punisher could come up. But the incredibly severe lack of any evidence to back this claim up makes me believe that it's simply a lie. A filthy fucking lie! God damn it, anything else? Oh yeah. The book Slugfest, inside the epic 50-year battle between Marvel and DC by Reed Tucker, describes the idea for the crossover as coming from Victor Gorelick and the, at the time, Punisher editor, Don Daly. And if you're thinking, I haven't heard the name Don Daly until now, it's because this is the only time his name comes up. The Bat and Lash version of events has Victor at the helm of the concept to crossover Archie with Marvel. So anyway, that's it. How do I end this? Fuck, man. The 90s. At the beginning of the story, I made a statement, and it was this. Josie first publicly premiered in Archie's Pals and Gals number 23. I said first publicly appeared because that's what it is. In the research for that one sentence, I found a lot of discourse on what was really Josie's first appearance. On our ever-reliable source, Wikipedia, we can see that Archie's Pals and Gals page claims, quote, the most notable issue was 1962's number 23, which featured the second appearance of Josie, Melanie, and Pepper, a week after the debut of the She's Josie comic book. And this is the only sentence on the page that sources its information. But when we click on that source, we see this page. Scrolling down to the story, quote, tongue twister, we see a note on the story. Quote, some sources claim this is the first Josie story. However, according to copyright records, She's Josie number 1, February 1963, was published on December 10th, 1962, 1 week before Archie's Pals and Gals number 23 came out. So what does that mean? Well, before we look at the copyright records, let's check the She's Josie entry on the Grand Comics database. Looking at the entry, we see right here, quote, the issue is the first published appearance of Josie James and Melanie Jones, later of Josie and the Pussycats fame. Some sources claim the first appearance was a story in Archie Pals and Gals number 23, winter 1962 to 1963. However, the copyright records do not bear this out. She's Josie number 1 was published on December 10th, 1962. Archie Pals and Gals number 23 was published on December 17th. Now that's one hell of a claim when the actual cover of She's Josie says February 1963. Not only that, but on the inside publication notice, it says February 1963. However, we're getting information that tells us this isn't right. So what is happening? Well, I'm putting my foot down. The Grand Comics database has correct information, but they are using it incorrectly. To the copyright records. Now, here's the She's Josie copyright renewal, which shows the original registration date. See here? 1962, December 10th. Well, that confirms that the first issue of She's Josie was registered with the American Copyright Records on that day. So what about Archie's Pals and Gals number 23? Well, that's right here. 1962, December 17th. So that is true. It is indisputable that She's Josie was registered with a copyright before Archie's Pals and Gals number 23. However, that doesn't mean that Josie had her first appearance in She's Josie. And that is where I have a problem with these claims. On top of everything else, this official Archie's comic page on Josie says she premiered in Archie's Pals and Gals number 23 in 1963. However, that is also probably incorrect. At least slightly. Archie's Pals and Gals number 23 was most likely released in December 1962. See, the final page of Archie's Pals and Gals number 23 has this Christmas ad. Well, let's remember, this is the winter 1962 to 1963 issue, as Archie's Pals and Gals was released quarterly. This would have been the final issue of the year. So yes, Josie was first recorded in the American United States copyright records under the title She's Josie, but her public premiere was in Archie's Pals and Gals number 23 with the story Josie and Tongue Twister. And quick side note here before we go, it seems that even though Archie Comics reprints stories like A Fish Drinks Water, they somehow haven't reprinted Josie and Tongue Twister, the first Josie story.